Hello, I'm Joe. I'm a professional concept artist and concept art lecturer here in the UK. And I'd like to talk about something that's going to make your painting better. It seems to me that there is one really obvious thing that people should be doing when they're painting, especially when they're studying, that they don't. I don't see it all that often. It's really odd to me that I don't see it all that often. And that's painting from life. Now, what does from life mean? Well, it means anything that's in front of you that you're viewing with your own eyes, rather than through the lens of a camera. There are plenty of reasons why you should be doing this, and maybe the most important reason is also just the most basic, which is you're actually viewing the thing in front of you in 3D space. So this example that I've got going in the background is a self-portrait, and I literally set up a mirror in front of my monitor and I started painting myself, which means if I move my head, well, I can actually see slightly different angles of myself and whatever else. I'm getting a more in-depth understanding of the 3D depth of my own facial features, right? I can turn slightly and see how far my nose comes out, whereas if I were doing a portrait from a photograph, I'm limited to the 2D shapes that I'm presented with, and I can't do much apart from copy those 2D shapes and hope for the best. I'm not actually intaking a 3D image and then producing my own 2D shapes based on that set of information. So the way that our eyes work is you have two of them, hopefully, and they're at slightly different distances from your subject. And because of that distance, you're actually receiving two different images at any given time, and your brain is parsing that information, stitching it together to present you with something that feels 3D. It's very difficult to describe that feeling, but compared with a photo, yes, things are 3D. I have an intuitive sense of depth for the thing in front of me. It feels like it has more 3D form. And that's going to reflect itself in my painting. So if you're someone that struggles with making their work feel 3D and feel like it belongs in a 3D space, maybe try and do some paintings from life, right? Because it's entirely possible that you're not actually getting any of the sense of 3D from the photos that you're looking at. And so why emulate something that isn't what you want in the long run? So that's number one, is things feel 3D. That's a tricky thing to understand unless you've done it. It's why people do figure drawing in person and they don't just use line of action, because there is such a huge benefit to it. It's probably the best thing I've ever done in my art career, is a whole lot of life drawing. Whenever I have the chance, I will paint from life. I will draw from life. I do not like drawing from photos particularly. Speaking of photos, number two is the change in value and color that we perceive from a photograph compared with real life. So when we look at a photo, there's a lot of funky stuff going on that a camera has decided for us. Maybe you walk outside of your house and it's first thing in the morning. It's 6:30 in the morning here. The sun is going to rise pretty soon, and I could look at that sun and I could really admire it for all of its beauty and the warms and cools that are intermingling, and the value of it would be sort of reasonably wide when I view it with my own eyes. But if I whip out my phone and I take a photo of that sunrise, what I'm going to get is a compressed, bland version. Of course it depends on your phone, and maybe you have a DSLR camera that you can take a photo with, but usually the values are going to be compressed. So either the things in shadow will be pushed further into shadow, or the things in light will be blown out and will just be pure white. You get this a lot of the time when you take a photo of the sky, it just blows out. And the colors aren't quite going to be as vibrant because my camera on my phone just doesn't have the ability to understand the kind of information that I'm seeing. And this is true for almost any camera. Your eyes are really quite sophisticated. They're probably the most sophisticated camera that there is. why don't we use them a little bit more, right? The second part of that, and thinking about how things work in terms of camera technology, is behind every camera there's a photographer, right? And so a big part of drawing and painting is composing your own images. It's deciding on the focal length, it's deciding on, even if I'm looking at my skull right now, and it's like roughly a sort of mid-tony value all over, maybe me as an artist, I can decide, actually I want to push it darker and I want to push the brights brighter. I can raise the contrast there, or actually I want to paint it from an angle that I'm not even seeing it from, or I want to exaggerate one color but not exaggerate another color. These are all creative decisions that we make that enhance an image, that make an image our own. It's part of what forms style. A lot of the time when we talk about style, what we're actually talking about is a lot of small creative decisions that someone might make intuitively that sort of culminate together into a habit, is how I would describe it. Those decisions are made for you when you use someone else's photography. When you're browsing Pinterest and you find the most beautiful picture of an ash tree, and it's perfectly composed and the lighting is perfect and all the colors are wonderful, someone else out there, another artist who you're probably never going to put in the effort to find out, has taken that photograph and they've made all the decisions. They're the one that's crouched on the ground to get the perfect angle. They're the one that's changed the exposure on their camera and the aperture. They've probably edited the photo after the fact as well. So empower yourself to be the person that makes those decisions. You go around, like you find something in your room or outside and you find the perfect angle for it, right? Like that's part of the fun of creating, is finding subjects and showing them off. Now obviously not everything ever that you paint has to be painted from life. That would be silly. There are some things that we can't paint from life. I completely acknowledge that. I cannot paint a Teutonic knight from life. I can't paint some kind of steam engine from life. I probably could actually, because there's a railway museum near my house. So maybe I could go and paint a steam engine from life. But there are plenty of things like an Abrams tank that I'm not going to have in my living room, unfortunately. That's where reference comes in. That's where reference is really, really important and really, really useful. But if you're just trying to study basic painting, you could just get a glass and put it on your desk. Like that's a really fun, tough challenge. You have your own hands that you could draw. If you want to practice drawing hands, you can actually feel them and understand how they work in 3D space. Anything basic you can do from life. You can paint your own friends. I've had a couple of friends around my house now. I've done oil paintings of them, which has been really, really lovely. And that brings me on to my final point, which once again, a bit like my last oil painting video, is about the humanity of it all. Drawing and painting from life, I think, encourages you to interface with the world around you in a way that sitting and scrolling through reference websites might not. So I've spoken about it before. I went to the zoo and I was painting rhinos from life, and I get to see people walk past and have conversations with them. I get to bring my friends around to my house and I get them to sit and we get to have lovely, lovely chats and watch smiling friends while I paint them. When I'm at work and I'm painting on my lunch break and thing, just objects around my desk, like I have those are memories that I now have of things that I have painted, and I was there and I witnessed them with my own eyes, not someone else's photography. So there you go. Try it out. Try and do some painting from life. It's really, really tricky at first. Just be aware that when you're going into it, it's going to be quite difficult. But as you get used to it, you're going to reap the rewards of painting from life. Your understanding of value and colour is just going to go exponentially up. Your understanding of drawing 3D form, you're actually going to be viewing things in 3D, and so that's going to go up as well. And hopefully you have some nice experiences interacting with other people in the world. So there you go. My Patreon link is in the description. The public Discord server link is also in the description. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, as I soon will, and I hope you check out some other videos.